Hi, you're right. This is video 2. Going to show you guys how to deal with these things that sound really boring at the start, subroutines and for loops. But these are going to make your programs a lot easier to understand and read, and also save you a bunch of time in terms of the amount of code you've got to write. Okay, so these are your learning objectives. If you just know that a subroutine and a for loop are ways of simplifying you and repeating a bit of a program, that's the bare minimum today. The important one though is being able to understand how to actually use a subroutine or a for loop and the commands that do that, and put them into your code. And what we want you all to be able to demonstrate is that you've done this by doing at least 3 different lighting patterns with the LEDs, using what you learned last week in video 1, and putting them into a mixture of subroutines and for loops. So if you can demonstrate that to your teacher by the end of the lesson, you've done your job for today, so well done. Okay, don't forget you've got homework due in, so make sure you hand that in. Right, just a quick reminder, that's what your circuit board looks like. We're going to be using LEDs today, and remember you've got to use the numbers that associate with them, so our LEDs are on Q0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, okay? Not Q7, that's the speaker. If you want to know how to do sound, that will be video 3. Okay, so you can either, well, I'll probably do this first and watch video 3 later, to be honest. Alright then, good. So you've made it this far. Hopefully what I would ask you to do is load up your file that you were working on last week with your LED commands, so you don't have to redraw them. Hopefully you should have had some saved. But I'm going to start over again. So once you've got your file loaded up, I'm just going to show you why this is necessary for starters. Okay, the first thing you might have done last week is make a program where you turn an LED on and off, for instance. Okay, so I'm going to make a program that turns them all on. I'll do this dead quick. I'm not going to explain what I'm doing here. If this doesn't ring any bells, then you need to go and watch video 1 again. Okay. So you'll remember that the red 0 means turn off. This is turning off all the LEDs for half a second. And now this is turning them all on. So this program, if I was to run this once and press play, we'd get this. Okay, press play. 1 flash of the lights and done. Okay, that's great. And you probably know how to repeat it. So if I joined it round to the start like that and press play, it would repeat. However, what if I wanted it to run twice? Only twice, or 3 times, or 10 times, or 100 times? At the moment, most of you will probably think the solution to that is, well, copy and paste it. So I could copy that lot, paste it here, paste it again, join them all up. Okay, and there you go. Any prizes there for guessing that should repeat once, twice, 3, 4. We'll get 4 flashes, okay, which is all right. But already, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're done. But already you can see that there's a problem with this. Okay, if you wanted to repeat 10 times or 20 times, your program's going to get really big, really quickly. Not only does that look messy on the screen, it's also hard to read and figure out where you might have gone wrong, and actually it uses up more memory on the chip. Now the little chip on the actual circuit board, this guy here, this is the PIC chip, this is the brains behind it, has only got a little bit of memory, and you want to preserve that as much as possible so you can fit your whole program on it. Remember, your program's going to get a lot more complicated as you work your way through these videos. Right, so this is where subroutines and for loops come in. Now the first one I'm going to show you is the subroutine, because I find that one the easiest to understand. So you scroll down and it's these 3 boxes here. You've got sub, return and call. Now you'll need to use all 3 but in different positions. What you might have noticed is I took my little bit of code that turns a light on and off, and I've taken it away from the start and I've put it over here. That's because I'm going to make it into its own little program by putting sub at the top and giving it a name. I did that by double clicking. So call it what it does, so this just flash all LEDs, that's what that does. And I'm going to put the return at the bottom. You see the dotted lines, they mean that these are a matched pair, like playing Snap. They have to go together. So every time you have a sub, you have to have a return when you've finished. And we've now got to think of that as like a miniature program that we can repeat or indeed call upon as many times as we want. So if I now take the call command and put it into my main program, the main program is the one that starts with start, double click on it, and I can select from my list my subroutine called flash all LEDs, and I can tell it how many times to repeat. So if I put 6 for instance, give it a caption, it's always helpful. So flash all lights 6 times, that's what that should do. Okay, and if I put a stop on the end of that, go and test it out, press play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and stop. Now that code looks a lot cleaner and simpler than having that big bit there repeated 6 times over. Okay, so this is where it's really, really useful. Now you can start to jazz things up a little bit here. You can have as many subroutines as you want, and this is part of what I want you to do today. So I'm going to make another subroutine now, and this one I'm going to call alternate. I'm going to put a return down here ready for when I need it. And what I'm going to do in this one, I'm going to do a sort of half and half effect. So I've dragged an outputs box on. I'm going to turn off those LED, in fact, turn them all off. I'm going to turn on those 4, leaving those 3, 1, 3 and 5 off. I'm going to make this one a bit quicker as well, so I'm going to make my wait a lot shorter, 1/4 of a second. And now I'm going to turn the opposite ones on, so like that, just to show you. So I've got those ones on, and now I've got these ones on. Remember from the last program, computers are dumb. You got to tell them everything. So if you tell them to turn a light on, tell it how long for. Turn a light off, tell it how long for. Right, that's my new subroutine called alternate. Now you could have loads of these. You could have flash in a line, or flash every other one, or you could have literally 10, 20, 30 different routines that all do different things. You only need to make them do their thing once, because then you can repeat them. So, refresher time, how do I call upon alternate in our main program? I get a call command. So I'll drag another one of those out. I'm going to put that under here now, and now when I click on name, you'll see I've got 2 subroutines to choose from. I'm going to choose alternate, and I'm going to run that 10 times. Okay, so this should flash all the lights 6 times, then alternate the lights 10 times, and then stop. Okay, so let's press play, check that out. I'll just show you the program running at the same time. 4, I believe 5, 6, you see it jumping across. Now I'll do alternate 10 times. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and stop. Now if you're using your programming logic brain, you'll notice that you'll see Q5, 3 and 1 remain on even though I've stopped the program. This is the sort of thing that will happen, and the reason that's happened is the last part of alternate that ran was this, where I turned those lights on, and then I stopped without telling the program to shut them off. So these are the kind of little it's called debugging, finding the little faults that you need to sort out. So the way I'd get around that is after alternate has run 10 times, I'll make sure I turn off those lights that were staying on and ruining the effect. Okay, that what I've just added in here would do the job. Right, so that's subroutines. Maybe pause the video now and go and do a couple yourself and come back to learn about for loops, but try and make yourself 2 or 3 subroutines that do interesting things. What would be nice to see is a subroutine that could make the lights turn on one by one and sort of go backwards and forwards in a kind of chaser effect. So why don't you see if you can write that. Okay, if you've done that, we're now going to learn about for loops. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that for now. I'm going to get rid of that completely, and I'm going to get rid of the subroutine part and just leave this behind so I don't have to rewrite it. So a for loop does much the same, but this comes with 2 parts as well. You've got for and you've got end loop. Now really it does much the same as a subroutine, but it does it in one spot, so you can put your code within the main program rather than off to the side. Now I personally prefer subroutines because to me it makes the program cleaner. You can kind of go examine bits in smaller chunks, whereas here it puts everything in the main loop. But anyway, so you put a for at the top and you put an end loop at the bottom. I'm I'm going to put a stop after this just to show you the effect it has. And then we need to specify and set up some things. So you might remember this code here turns half the lights on, then the other half on. If I go to 4, I get this option here. What this will do is repeat the code between the for box and the end loop box based on the factors you've selected here. So if I leave it as range 1 to 10 in steps of 1, it will basically repeat it 10 times. If I change this box to 20, it will repeat it 20 times. Okay, so just to show that working, I'll change it to 5, 1 to 5 in steps of 1. If we press play, I'll show you what will happen here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and just to show you that on the real life version, we should get 5 alternates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, the lights remain on because of the reason I showed you before, but you can sort that out because you're smart people. Okay, so the only other thing you might want to tweak is, let's just set that to 6 for a second. You can change the steps that you count in. Now, I don't really get the point in this, because if I change this to 2, this would repeat, it would step up by the number 2 each time, so it would go 2, 4, 6, because 2 goes into 6 3 times, so it would just repeat 3 times. I don't really get why you'd want to do that when you could just repeat your program 3 times in steps of 1. But anyway, it's an option there if you want to play with it. Okay, I won't mess around with this in this early video, but if you're wondering what using a loop variable means, it means you can use a piece of memory to choose the number of times you repeat. We're not going to do that now, but in one of the advanced videos at the end, if you get that far, or if you want to read ahead and learn about it. But for instance, you might have a situation where your light sensor, depending on how dark or light it is, you want to repeat your program more or less times in relation to how dark or bright it is, and you could do that using a loop variable, but I will not show you now because it will blow your minds, probably. Alright, there we go. So just leave that loop variable set as it was. Alright, so that's the for loop. You've also seen subroutines. Your job now for the rest of the lesson is to build 2 or 3 interesting lighting patterns using what you learned last week and what you've just learned now, and put them into a series of flowcharts using for loops and subroutines, and then show your teacher. I would recommend you save whatever you do today, because you'll need it next week. Next lesson we're going to learn about how to add sound into this, and we'll be doing sound with loops and routines and LEDs all at the same time, so we're gradually building up the complexity. Alright, off you go and do it. Don't forget to save your work.